Hey guys, what's up, it's Zyflin here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about how you can make the steel path and the circuit really easy. So here's the thing, there are a lot of YouTube videos out there nowadays that is like, oh my god, epic, amazing, brilliant steel path build for name Warframe here. And while that is cool, it is information overload to a new player. The new player sees, oh, you gotta have this mod and this mod over here, and then also your Sentinel needs a Prime mod that came out like years ago or something. And I'm here to tell you, forget about it. Steel path and the circuit are super easy. Now we've got two options. Number one, you can come to Venus, you can go to Fossa, you can kill this boss a bunch of times to get all the blueprints for all of Rhino's parts. Then you can come to the market, you can type in Rhino, click on this one right here, then go ahead and get his blueprint. Then just go ahead, craft all of his parts, throw them together, and claim him in 3 days whenever he's ready. Then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and run a build that looks like this. You've got that final slot as a flex slot to run whatever you want. And don't worry about the fact that I've got Vault Shock ability over the first ability. You can completely ignore that. And this frame, with this build, all by itself is going to be enough to get you through all of the Star Chart Steel Path content. Like you're saying to yourself, Flynn, what about the circuit? The common complaint whenever it comes to the circuit is ideal, no damage with my weapons. We're going to go ahead and fix that. So what you want to do is you want to come over to Necrolisk here. Then once you're in here, just go ahead, pause the game, go to fast travel and press Sun. Then we're going to go ahead, talk to Sun, press Browse Wares, and we are going to scroll down until we see the Helm segment blueprint. Now for this, we need a purple Velocipod tag, we need Adrenal Alloy, Saturated Muscle Mass, and Ganglion. So the purple Velocipod, all you have to do is go and get a Tranquilizer from Fortuna, equip that to your gear wheel, then walk out of Necrolisk into the Cambion Drift, and then somewhere near sort of the left, you're eventually going to find a purple Velocipod. Just go ahead, shoot that with the Tranquilizer, then go ahead and pick it up. Go back into Necrolisk, then back out again to force him back in, and just rinse and repeat that until you have enough tags. Adrenal Alloy, you need to go ahead and you have to talk to Otak to get the blueprint for this. Then you have to go and you have to get some of the resources to actually craft this in your foundry. Some of the resources are from mining in Fortuna. Some of the resources are from mining here in Deimos. You need to make sure that you have a mining tool, which you can get from Fortuna as well. Saturated muscle mass, that comes from fish. To be specific, it comes from the Ostamir and Chimeros fish. And both of those can be found in Deimos. So you have to go to Daughter, talk to Daughter, get the spear from her, and then go outside and just fish in caves and on the surface. And eventually you'll get all of the resources that you need to craft the Helm of Segment. Now just come to your foundry, craft that segment, and then in a day's time, you're going to be able to come to this chair, sit in it, and you're going to be greeted with this screen here. Now, if you skip the first step, whenever it comes to getting a Rhino Warframe, you're going to have to go and do that now. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking Rhino's Roar ability, and we're going to be putting that on to our other frames. I want you to not overthink this. A lot of the videos out there are like, oh, you should throw on this different helmet ability or that different helmet ability. Think about what you're complaining about when you jump into the circuit. It's ideal no damage, and I'm finding it hard to survive. The Roar ability is one of the best damage buffet abilities in the game because it often double dips your damage. And what that means is it's going to increase your damage initially because of the ability cast, and then it's also going to increase the damage over time effects of your status effects a second time. So it's enhancing your damage, and then it's enhancing your damage again whenever you're dealing a damage over time effect. And let's say you watch a build video on YouTube and they tell you to run a Prime Being Off mod. Now the Prime Being mods are really good because they more or less do the exact same thing as Rhino's Roar. But you guys aren't all gonna have Prime Beam mods. So we can use Rhino's Roar as a substitute for that. Now Rhino's Roar, depending on how good your build is going to be better than Prime Beam mods in most of the cases. But long story short, if you're using Roar, it opens up this mod slot for you to run something different. So in the case of the Natteric here, I could go ahead and run another Galvanize mod, Galvanize Scope, and this is going to give me even more critical chance. Enhancing the amount of critical chance you have actually increases the amount of critical damage you deal. If you hover over, you see the digital extremes, they categorize it as values over 100% have a chance to become a big crit hit, hit, so an orange crit, and over 200% has a chance to become a super critical hit. And basically, these tiers of crits just deal more damage. So most of you are going to have the Natteric if we're talking about doing Steel Path content or Steel Path circuit, because you need to complete the new war quest to actually get there in the first place. And I can safely tell you that this Natteric build is going to allow you to do every single Steel Path mission on the star chart, especially if you're using Rhino's Roar ability. But let's say you don't want to play Rhino and you want to play a different frame because different frames make things more efficient, more fun, whatever the excuse is. All you have to do is pick your favorite frame. So for example, I like to play Volt a lot of the time. What I've done is I've went out of my way to make a Volt build with Rhino's Roar ability. Now I know that Volt's first ability actually has an augment for it, which adds electric damage to my weapons if I press and hold the ability down. So that's Shock Trooper, and that's going to give me bonus electric based on the amount of power strength that I have. So I'm going for a high duration, high power strength build that is going to benefit my Shock Trooper augment mod and also my Rhino's Roar ability. So anytime you're throwing Rhino's Roar ability onto a Warframe, make sure you are building a high duration, high strength build, prioritizing the ability strength. And that is basically going to be enough to make you deal more damage in Steel Path content. Now the thing with the circuit is you are guaranteed to get some weapons that you own. So if you come up to the front of the ship here and I press on the circuit, what you can do is you can hover over the weapons here, and I can see that I have the Kuviton Core, the Latron Prime, the Snipetron Vandal, Prisma Angstrom, Spectra Vandal, Sigma and Octantis, the Dark Sword, and the Nami Skyla Prime. Now, I'm sure there's one or two of these weapons that I don't own, and some weapons that you don't own are just going to show up. But a lot of the weapons are going to be weapons that you own. All you have to do is actually tweak your builds a little bit. So you can actually load into the circuit, take a look at everything that you have, or just look here on this screen, go and optimize the builds and base the builds around the fact that you're running Rhino's Roar, and you're actually going to deal damage in the circuit and you can stay for a lot longer. Now you might be like, well, how am I supposed to know what Warframes I'm going to get? You can do the exact same thing. You can just hover over here, what frames you've got, and you can say to yourself, okay, what frames are here that I want to play, and I'm also okay throwing on Rhino's Roar over a bad ability. You could definitely throw Roar on Haro, Zephyr, Protea, Hydroid, and Loki, to be completely honest. You can make high strength, high duration builds for all of these frames. You just need to know what you're building for. Now, the next complaint that I get is, hey dude, I'm dying a lot whenever I'm doing Steel Path content or I'm playing the Steel Path circuit. So depending on the frame, surviving is going to be either really easy or really hard. On the likes of Rhino, it's going to be really easy because of his Iron Skin ability, but then on the likes of Banshee or something, it's going to be really hard. But normally there is a way to actually go about it. Because you're running Rhino's Roar on most of your Warframes, or you're in that mindset where you're running the Roar ability, what you can do is you can go ahead and throw Blind Rage onto your builds for a ton of power strength. That's going to be beneficial for Rhino's Roar ability, but this gives you a big hit to your ability efficiency, meaning abilities cost way more energy to cast. Now, if you don't like that, if you've got no way to sustain your energy, what you can do is you can go ahead and run Equilibrium and Prime Flow. So for example, if I was taking a look at this build, I could quite easily swap out Augur Secret, sacrificing a little bit of power strength for Equilibrium, and I could swap out Streamline for Prime Flow, or I could just keep Streamline there. It just depends what you're comfortable with, really. My Rhino's Roar has a 67-second duration, so you know, that might be overkill to some people. You might want to throw in Fleeting Expertise over Streamline if you really want. Because I am super lazy, well, I like to keep my duration quite high. So basically, having Blind Rage on increases your ability strength, therefore increasing the damage of Rhino's Roar ability, but decreasing your ability efficiency, meaning it costs a lot of energy to cast. Now, like I said, if you're not comfortable with that, you can use Fleeting Expertise, Streamline, etc., to counteract that negative to efficiency. However, if you've completed the Silver Grove quest, you can go ahead and you can farm this mod called Brief Respite. Now what this does, it says on ability cast, squad converts 150% of energy spent to shields while over shields are inactive. So basically, if all of your shields are gone and you've used up your shield gate, you can just go ahead and cast an ability and you're going to get all of your shields back. The less ability efficiency you have, the better Brief Respite becomes. If you're unaware of what shield gating is in Warframe, basically if you have, let's say, 100 shield or something, and an enemy shoots you and they deal 1,000,000 damage, the 100 shield that you had is actually going to absorb that 1,000,000 damage. And you're going to have a brief period of invulnerability to get your shields back up. Then, if that enemy shoots you again with your 100 shields, it's going to absorb it again. Rinse and repeat. That is shield gating. You're only going to take damage to your health if that enemy breaks your shield, and then you keep on taking damage while your shield is down. It doesn't get to recharge. Then the enemy is eventually going to be able to hit your health. And in the event that that happens, we actually have an emergency mod called Rolling Guard. What this allows you to do is go ahead and do a roll, and it's going to make you invincible for 3 seconds. It's also going to cleanse you of any negative status effects such as bleeding, burning, electric shocks, etc. And if having Brief Respite and Rolling Guard both together on their own really isn't enough for you, you can go ahead and throw on Augur mods, and that's going to make it so you get even more shields. So we've talked about increasing our damage with Roar. We've talked about how to stay alive. Now we have to talk about conditional mods, or as they're actually called, galvanized mods. So what happens a lot of the time is players complete the entire star chart and they think, great, now I've got access to the steel path to get the best stuff in the game. I need to play the steel path because that's where you get like the turret and Karnin and all of that stuff. They dive in head first without considering all of the other activities in the game, and the mods that they've got simply aren't enough to take on steel path enemies. What you should be doing before you even consider playing the steel path is going to the alerts tab and playing arbitrations. As you play arbitrations, you're going to get a resource known as Vitus Essence, and you can spend this Vitus Essence at any relay. So to find the people that you want to spend your Vitus Essence with, just go ahead, come into any relay, and then go ahead, open up your map, and you're looking to go to the Arbiters of Hexus, which for me, they are all the way at the end up here, and you want to talk to the guy on the left. Now, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see all these galvanized mods. You want to pick up every single one of these. Also, you remember that Rolling Guard mod that we were talking about? Yeah, you get that here as well. These galvanized mods are quite important as they allow you to deal even more damage in many different ways. So these galvanized mods are going to allow you to increase the amount of damage that you deal in many different ways. So this one reads plus 80% multi-shot, on kill, plus 30% multi-shot for 20 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. Now for those of you with a good memory, the multi-shot mod for rifles is called Split Chamber. This is Galvanized Chamber. So basically, this mod, even though it only gives 80% multi-shot base compared to the 90% that Split Chamber gives, this is actually going to give you more multi-shot than Split Chamber. So it's always more beneficial to run Galvanized Chamber over Split Chamber. You do just have to rack up some kills for it to be better than Split Chamber, but you only need 1 kill. You definitely should not be attempting to do any Steel Path content in the game without first getting these galvanized mods for your rifle and your secondaries. Also your shotguns as well, if you use shotguns. Now, yeah, it will eventually get really expensive with the amount of resources that you have to spend put Rhino's Roar ability on all of your different frames, and it will get quite expensive to rank up all of the galvanized mods in terms of endo and stuff like that. But it is so worth it because Rhino's Roar plus the galvanized mods plus using Brief Respite and Rolling Guard, they just make everything so much easier. And if things get easier, things get more efficient, and if things get more efficient, you get more things. And if you're really struggling with Steel Path content, look to your companion. Now we've got 2 options. We have the Worm Prime. Now the reason that Worm Prime is good is because he can cleanse you of status effects and increase your fire rate. So to do that, we need to pay attention to these 2 mods. So we have Reinforced Bond. If the companion exceeds 1200 max shields or over shields, then your fire rate is increased 60%. Reloading restores 150 overshields to your companion. So as you can see, the value needed is 1200, but just with calculated redirection on it, we have 2100. We permanently have a fire rate buff, and then we have Negate. Sentinel prevents status effects from applying to its owner once every 5 seconds. This is big for your survivability. Then we also have Tenacious Bond here, so it reads headshot kills reduce companion recovery timer by 3 seconds. If the companion's critical chance is over 50%, then you gain a plus 1.2 times final critical damage multiplier. So for that, we would run the Volklock, and we can just run all these Vigilante mods. Now your second option is actually the Dariga. Now with the Dariga, you want to go ahead and run Verglas as the weapon. And what the Dariga is going to do is they are going to go and they are going to spread so many viral procs to all of the enemies around. And it's also going to produce a lot of energy orbs for you as well via this duplex bomb mod. The companion will clone itself each time you expend 100 energy, up to 3 clones. Clones live 30 seconds and cannot use abilities. Their kills have a 50% chance of dropping those orbs. And then also, enemies injured by the companions have 25% chance to drop a health orb when killed. So if you've got those clones killing and damaging enemies, well, you're going to get a lot of health orbs and a lot of energy orbs. And that's going to make our Equilibrium mod, like we talked about earlier, far more effective. On the Verglas, you're running a viral heat build, so then these little companions are going to go and spread a ton of viral heat to all the enemies around, making them even easier to kill. So if you're really struggling, Verglas is probably the way to go. But if you want to see bigger numbers, then you can go ahead and use Warframe. Another thing that's worth talking about is, guys, don't sleep on your focus skill trees. I see a lot of newer players just not investing any of their focus affinity into their focus skills. For example, Vazarin is basically the stay alive skill tree. This skill tree gives you so many different iframes and stuff like that, and it's not just limited to your operator. Protective Sling. Allies touched by Void Sling are granted immunity from damage for 5 seconds and healed 60% over 5 seconds for 10 energy cost. That's an insanely strong ability for staying alive. It literally makes you invincible. The first 4 revives are instant, and you know you're going to need this for a fact if you play public circuit. Struggling with energy? Just go ahead and use Zeneric. If you're struggling with dealing damage, go ahead and use Matarai. That's basically it. Those are the 3 skill trees that you want to invest into to survive, sustain energy, and deal damage. So long story short, go ahead and put Rhino's Roar on the Warframes that you frequently use in the Steel Path and in the Circuit. Put Roar over an ability that you don't use often, don't build for, or is straight up just bad. Use Brief Respite and Rolling Guard to stay alive over things like Vitality and Redirection. Do not attempt to do any Steel Path content until you get and upgrade these Galvanize mods. And invest into a good companion which is going to do something, keep itself alive, and keep you alive. And that's pretty much it. Just get builds from trusted YouTubers and people who know what they're talking about, and then just use Rhino's Roar on all of your frames and stuff like that. Keep yourself alive with Sentinels and with Rolling Guard, Brief Respite, etc., and you should be good to go. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as it helps the channel a lot. If you want to get early access to my videos, you can become a channel member by pressing the join button beneath this video for $5 a month. Or if you want early access to other cool resources and behind the scenes content, you can subscribe to my Patreon for less than $5 a month. Consider clicking on the video on screen, and I'll see you guys in the next one.